evening and welcome. I am Amarachi Ubani. Tonight, the Army intensifies move to enforce discipline amongst officers against court-martial of 2 generals. Finance Minister Kemi Adeosun says that the priority for now is to ensure fiscal discipline in managing the nation's economy. 4 ministers visit Lagos on the change agenda, promise to execute programs to empower the poor. And Turkey's Prime Minister Ahmed Davutoglu to quit at an extraordinary congress of his ruling AK party later this month.
And on business news tonight, Minister of Power asks privatized electricity distribution companies to sell part of their holdings to new investors to offset financial backlog.
On sports news tonight, Nigeria's Super Eagles remain unmoved in the latest monthly rankings of football-playing nations by FIFA.
We begin tonight with what looks like the beginning of a court-martial of 2 major generals of the Nigerian Army for alleged indiscipline. The court-martial is headed by Air Vice Marshal James Boom. The 2 accused are Major General Ibrahim Sani, who was the Chief of Army Transformation and Innovation Center, and Major General Patrick Falola, who was the Commander, 68 Hospital, Yaba. Our correspondent Amaka Okafo reports.
Officers and men of the Nigerian Army waiting at the venue of the special court-martial to try 2 senior officers of the Nigerian Army. All set, the president of the court-martial, Air Vice Marshal James Boom, convened the court and then got the consent of the accused persons on the composition of the panel.
Do you have any objections for me as the president of this special court-martial? I have no objection.
Next was the administration of oath of office to the president and the 3 other members of the panel.
That I will wear. And truly, try the accused person.
And then it was the turn of the judge advocate of the court-martial. As he was about to be sworn in, the prosecutor pointed it out to the court-martial that the accused persons ought to be given the opportunity to decide if they wanted him as their judge advocate. But the lawyers to the 2 military officers opposed his request.
The judge advocate should put himself out and give the accused officers the opportunity to object to his sitting here as judge of the on the 3 grounds here listed by this law.
The court is not yet fully formed, so he has no right to be heard. It is until the court is fully formed and the judge advocate is sworn in that the court can begin to hear accusations from both sides of the divide.
In a short ruling, the Judge Advocate Colonel Said Musa ruled the prosecutor out of order.
We have complied with the rules of procedure, which provide that you cannot object to the Judge Advocate.
And then he was sworn in. With all the formalities out of the way, another round of argument ensued between the counsel to General Sani and the prosecutor. Counsel to General Sani asked the court to order that the charges against his client be made available in line with the law so that he can adequately prepare for his case. But in his reply, the prosecutor pointed out to the court-martial that there are procedures provided by the law to make such documents available to an accused person. However, the trial against General Patrick Falola will commence on the 9th of May 2016. Amaka Okafo, Channels Television News.
To security issues, over 11,000 civilians are reported to have been rescued from various hideouts belonging to the Boko Haram sect. The army says its rescue operations were carried out over the past 6 weeks after troops intensified efforts to mop up all insurgent activities in the northeast. The military further explains that the mop-up exercise was carried out by different military outposts across the region and that a significant number of the captives were received from Cameroonian authorities. In other news, the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, today affirmed the federal government's decision to develop a culture of saving as part of efforts to resolve prevailing global economic challenges. The minister, who was on our breakfast show, Sunrise Daily, explained that state governors also agree with the federal government's policy on the need to reduce the cost of governance while focusing on capital projects.
I think it's unfair to say the states didn't want to save, because I was in state government. The issues were around, if we have these savings, this excess crude, then let's know you're saving. But we were coming to the FAC account, the FAC meetings month on month, and the balance was going down. I was saying, if you say you're saving for me, don't dip into it. If we're all saving, let's save. But if after a while you come back, the figure has changed, after a while people just said, okay, let's have our own money. But let's talk about the saving culture and specifically about the governors and their will. One thing this has done, and they say never waste a good crisis, is that everybody is now extremely sober. Every Nigerian is sober. Every governor has realized that, wow, so this can happen. Oil price can plummet from 110 to 28 over such a short period of time, and we can be so exposed that we can't even pay salaries. So there is a sobriety that has come in that I don't think we should waste, and we are working very hard with the states now. We've said to them, firstly, we're not bailing them out. We've said we will have a fiscal restructuring plan. Whatever we do is conditional. You must go away and drive efficiencies. You must go away and, for example, do biometric capture of your staff. Know who you're paying. Put in efficiency units. We've done it at the federal government level, and we're seeing the level of savings that can generate. You must sign up to a restructuring plan. And if you don't want a restructuring plan, then we will not help you in any way. And that was the agreement that was formed at NEC last week, which was the meeting of the economic team headed by the Vice President and the governors. And all the governors are subscribing to the need for sustainability of the state.
The Minister of Finance was among 4 ministers who were in Lagos today to explain the activities of the government and the plans for the nearest future. Our correspondent, Shewa Kimbaloy, reports.
In a matter of weeks, it will be 1 year since President Muhammadu Buhari got into office. The assurances of the campaigns and hopes of the inauguration speech are perhaps not exactly what is playing out on the streets of Nigeria.
How are you, sir?
Major players in the newspaper media practice in Nigeria in Lagos and a meeting with some ministers of the Buhari government. An interaction that has spurred responses of the team to what the administration is doing.
Today, the president's efforts have paid off as Boko Haram has been massively decimated. This is a rare feat. The insurgents clearly have lost their capacity to carry out the kind of spectacular attacks for which they became infamous.
Most Nigerians are perhaps not asking for too much, the very basics of life. But what are the assurances they will get them?
Because at last we're thinking there was no reason for us to import rice, or even wheat, or sugar. What happened to cocoa? We were among the top leaders, top producers in the world. We're now number 3 in Africa, with Ivory Coast approaching 2 million tons and Nigeria battling with 250,000 tons. And yet cocoa can grow in 23 states. 23 states of the Federation can produce cocoa. Rice can grow in virtually every state of this country. Rice. And put close to 10 million people to work.
And the investments are showing that they do want to come, but we need to address governance. And governance is not just about the corruption.
Several questions came up. The ministers come to the party to again send a message of hope to Nigerians and the essence of the APC government.
Let me assure Nigerians for the umpteenth time that our change agenda is real and that indeed Nigerians will get the change they voted for. We need you to help communicate to Nigerians that change is a process, to commend them for their perseverance and to give them hope.
1 year going, 3 years to go, but the fact is Nigerians are expectant on the deliverables of the Buhari government, and they will be waiting, and hard questions will also be asked, which makes it a must for President Buhari and his team to deliver. Shewa Kimbaloy reporting for Channels Television News.
We'll be talking more about the economy later. In the meantime, the chairman of the National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has been explaining what INEC is doing to ensure that fresh by-elections to be conducted in Rivers, Anambra and Kogi states will not end up inconclusive again. He said all the human and material resources are being galvanized by the agency to ensure that authentic voter register, functional card readers and other electoral materials are deployed for the exercise. The INEC boss also says his agency is now set to make a presentation to the National Assembly to accommodate the card readers and other electronic devices that will be introduced into future elections and incorporate them in the new Electoral Act.
There are 2 or 3 inconclusive elections out of about 50 elections. So far we have conducted 50 elections. But I think there is an explanation for this. For instance, we have analyzed all the inconclusive elections, a handful of them, and they, in all cases, occurred where there was violence or disruption of the process. Elections are becoming better in Nigeria. There is no doubt about it, since the introduction of technology in the 2015 general election. That's one. Secondly, we have strong political parties fielding strong candidates in the elections. The stakes are now even higher. For that reason, you don't have the situation that we used to have before, where you have one large party and smaller parties leading to landslide victory in elections. The era of landslide in our elections is gone for good. Lemo Committee made a similar recommendation to the OS Committee. And the report of the Lemo Committee was accepted by the government of the day. A white paper issued. The Attorney General at the time directed by the white paper to take steps to establish the Electoral Offences Tribunal. It requires the amendment of the Electoral Act that has not been done. So what we are doing now is to work very closely with the 2 committees on INEC at the National Assembly, House and Senate to see if we can revisit particularly the OS and Lemo reports on that aspect of their recommendations, believing also that we need to nip in the bud the rising trend of electoral violence.
In part 2, after the break, we'll have more on the economy. I'll be joined by a financial analyst, Mr. Johnson Chukwu. Do join us again.